Welcome to the second week of Quick and Early Miracles, where I'm out here for 10-ish to 20-ish minutes, 5 days a week, for 5 weeks. 3 more, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 more. And I'm available to talk about anything that you want to talk about, anything that you're exploring as far as consciousness, healing, relationships, whatever you got going on, and or what comes to me to talk about topic-wise. Good morning. Shauna, is that you, girl? You over there? What came to me, does anybody have any topics before I start running in this direction? Give me a second to get in here and decide if you got something you want to talk about. If not, what I've got is unconditional love, and I'm calling it spiritual judgment. High vibe, low vibe. All right, no topics? In that case, off we go. So, unconditional love, when I'm talking about most things, I mean broadly as a state of being, a state of consciousness. I'm not saying here's how you get your person, or here's how you get your bag. I'm saying your experience of being. Good evening from Australia. Hello. So when I'm talking about unconditional love, I mean the experience that you have of your life. So I used the word conditioning a bit yesterday when I was describing how the true self can be distorted. You get conditioned from the outside world, and they say to, it's kind of like trained to sit, trained to jump, trained to respond this way, trained to value these things. And I hadn't really noticed, but that word is in this phrase too. And when I use unconditional here, what I mean is, and I guess it's kind of cute. It's the same. Unconditional in this respect means that you don't have, let me make my heart darker, you don't have any conditions on your joy, meaning you don't need something to feel some type of way. You are unconditional in your love of what is. In contrast, a condition would be, I need them to like me so that I feel loved. I need that job so I feel important. Those are all conditions on your experience. Many of the conditions that you're working with that are the deepest, you can't really see. You don't know that you're holding yourself apart from the experience of joy. You really think something else is, a set of circumstances is, not enough money, not enough health, not enough this. It really seems like, no, Shay, I would be set for that. And of course, there's something to your physical comfort. Having access to resources can make a difference. And yet, you can curate your inner environment such that it is of acceptance. And why would you want to do that? Well, you might want to do that because the feelings that you experience being unconditionally in love are the feelings you're trying to experience by making yourself miserable about not having the condition that you think that you should. And I always, in pretty much all my broadcasts, get to some point where I'm like, this shit real ironic when you look at it. But often you would feel the way you want to feel, except for that you think you need that to feel it. So unconditional love is essentially a choice that you make where you say, I'm going to let myself feel good regardless of what's happening. And sometimes that choice seems more available than others. Like I said, there'll be areas of your life that you're like, no, I couldn't possibly feel that way here because. And then there will also be experiences that you have bodily that's like, no, I can't because I really feel this way. And in that case, when it's a feeling that you can't steer, you can love the feeling. when we're looking at applying some of these spiritual concepts, you know, I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, when I first started, it seemed like, yes, there was a natural expression, like a natural expansiveness component to it. Like, I was just growing that direction. But there was also a component of it that's like, oh, cool, now I can control my life. And you want to try to control it on the outside to start, which is like, let me get those things. Let me have that stuff. Cool, I'll use spirituality to manifest it. And eventually you'll get over that and be like, okay, I can control my inner experience. It should be like this. And then eventually you get over that and you see that you don't really have control over either of those except your willingness to witness them. And through your willingness to witness, then you can affect them in a different way. But the witness that's the level that you apply unconditional love. It's when you let yourself look at your inner experience or your outer experience and be like, okay, you love you enough to afford you the opportunity to enjoy the experience, whether it's rain or shine, on the outside or on the inside. And again, sometimes that's easier than others, but it thins out the resistance or the density or emotion between you and forward motion. So let's say I'm having a lot of fear, or let's say that maybe I'm sad about something. This isn't saying like it's not saying ignore that you feel sad. It's saying love the experience of sadness. And then if there is any wrong thinking causing that sadness, it'll kind of correct itself. So wrong thinking affecting sadness would be something like, and it's not wrong thinking, it's just not the whole way complete or accurate. It's saying like, I'm sad because this didn't arrive on time. Well, if you knew that it was coming tomorrow, or you knew that it was probably best that you didn't get it, do you still need to feel sad? There are a lot of emotional experiences that we take on and have because of how we think. And I've already put out a lot of content on that, so I'm not going to spend too much time there unless somebody wants to. So, and yet there are also experiences emotionally that you'll have that sort of transcend what you're consciously choosing to think, or I guess those wouldn't be conscious choices. It would be like grief. Sometimes grief is outside of you thinking, and yet you could make grief a lot bigger by saying this shouldn't have been. So unconditional love is first a practice of mindfulness when you start to tune in and say like, how do I feel? How do I feel about how I feel? What am I thinking? Like, am I making myself miserable? How could I let right now be okay? It does seem like ultimately we, the flatness, like you don't, in the witness, when you're allowing for your inner experience and your outer experience, it seems like, actually I could use this. Last night I was watching, I've been watching French movies so I could learn French, and this one was called Chic, and it was about a fashion designer who her employees got her this muse that she thought she needed, and it came out at the end where her employee was like, you're tyrannical, you're narcissistic, you're manipulative, you're like all these things. And the artist is like, yes, I must be, I'm an artist. But you, honey, like, you don't need those things. And it does seem like there is a diversity of experience that is say it's essential, but it's like, you don't really want to be mad at that either. Like, it's kind of, it's not striving for perfect emotional balance as much as perfect acceptance. And I think that, so one of the topics I had was spiritual judgment today, high, low. So sometimes when someone is on the path and they're starting to get a handle of like, healing themselves and some of the more esoteric principles, they'll see somebody that's more just 3D. They're on the ground and they're like, ew, this person doesn't know about this. Like, they're affecting my vibe. Well, in some ways that's true, but the thing that mostly is affecting your vibe is you judging them. It's like, there is all of this irony baked into the evolution of, and it's probably because what's happening is like, we're transcending words, we're transcending the mind, and the mind is the part that says it's this or it's this. But in truth, it's like, it's always both. It's like, it's both. And one kind of like begets the other. And so while you're going on this path, it's a lot of meeting that, and how willing are you to see really what is there, and to appreciate that it's both. So with the path, like, guiltiest as possible, and judging myself and going through this, where it's like, Shaylee, that wasn't very, like, here's the target, like, what would Jesus do? And like, you're still here. And I think that there is something to striving for that level of awareness, but from my vantage point, it seems like arrive there now through acceptance of not being there. And when we're looking at, sharing the good word, or allowing for, the light to come through you, it doesn't come through you if you judge it. I mean, it can't not. But at the same time, it's really interesting to be mindful where you're not yet able to accept the people who haven't made those choices yet. And they might not be making them for a number of reasons, and none of which we'd be able to actually point out. But it's not, I find that usually in those instances, there's more space for you to appreciate and reconcile who you used to be before you had a pocket full of crystals, because like, all of this stuff is obvious until it's not. So I think nutrition is such a great parallel to this material, where, someone starts people start in the same town, they all eat pretty similarly, and one person then starts to experiment with like organics and like eating in a way that balances their body chemistry, etc. And so then they're seeing other people not eating there, and they're like, behold, you could have this experience if you do this. And the people who haven't had that experience are like, seems like a lot of work and not that fun, and then I couldn't go to the party. And it's like, yes, but the feeling that you have when you do this, like, it's worth it. And it really is, like, it really fucking is. But it's tough to like bridge between those, and it's not your job to reach down and yank anybody up there. Your job is just like to be and do you. And if somebody is interested in what you're doing, they can ask you. But it's not like to sit up there and say like, how could they have pizza again? It's like, that doesn't help you. That makes you miserable. So the healthy body chemistry that you've created through making intentional choices, which is an investment of time and energy, you just threw to shit because you're also then you're like in fear and judgment, which changes your body chemistry anyhow. So it seems like there is always space for, like, that would be unconditional love too, or you're not saying like, I need you to behave this way so that you're good enough. And that doesn't mean, you give everybody a blank pass to like walk into your house and throw all your pillows on the floor. It's just saying, like, if somebody does that, you can not judge them and also not invite them over. And this comes back to the irony of, like, there are more things of either or. It's like, I hate them and they can't come over, or I love them and they must come over. It's like, no, there's a middle ground. There's so much more to experience than what our, like, either or brains can come up with. And I think that's all I got for today. I just wanted to come out, and I want to keep these really short so that they're manageable for peeps if anybody wants to follow along. Topics, thoughts, feelings, comments, questions before I close. In summary, what I was talking about today was unconditional love. And unconditional love is actually a choice that you make of your own personal experience, where you let whatever's happening on the inside or the outside be right. And that means you're not trying to exert your feelings or your thoughts. You're not trying to exert power over those things to get them to, like, okay, now I think and feel this is perfect. It's more like, are you allowing that is your personal experience? And when you love what you're feeling or what you're thinking, it lifts itself. It's like consciousness, like higher vibes are your natural state. And when you use your mind, it's like holding a beach ball underwater. You don't have to do shit to get the beach ball to rise. It rises on its own as soon as you stop judging and trying to control what is. Acceptance is sort of saying, like, well, here we are. And through that, the beach ball rises and your perspective changes and what you're able to receive and respond to, like, it all shifts. But the only way to do that is really to accept. Not the only way, but it seems like the most efficient way. Will you share this on your feed to watch the replay? Yes, I will. Thank you. So unconditional love is when you don't need things to be a certain way for you to be okay. And this one is honestly, like, it's real tough, or it was for me. It might be easier now. It's real tough to, like, kind of put it in certain areas, because I was always trying to use this to get something. Like, I'll figure this out and then I'll, have my X-Men suit and house and mansion. But it's the practice isn't in itself is the reward, the sensation, the feeling, the presence, the quality of being that you offer yourself and others. Like, that's it. Like, that's where you're trying to go, and really allow yourself to acknowledge that in most instances, when you're holding yourself out of feeling good right now because you're worried about something later, or if you're going to get something, or you don't have something, or it's not some type of way, acknowledge that what you're trying for in all those instances is to feel good. You just want to feel good. And so why would you think about those things now in a way that makes you feel bad? And it doesn't mean you still won't evolve in that direction. It doesn't mean that you won't make progress towards those goals. It doesn't mean you have to sit in the corner and just accept everything that is. On the contrary, when you let yourself feel better now, it is so much fucking easier to make steps towards those things and to feel like you're worthy enough to have them. And then the other thing I talked about was I started to talk about spiritual judgment, where it's real cute and ironic, but just being mindful that if you have a practice of self-awareness, if you're on the healing journey, if you're doing some stuff for you and other people aren't, when you judge them for the choices that you were also making at some point, it's not very spiritual of you. And it doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong. I'm pointing that out from the standpoint of, like, are you achieving your aim through that objective? And if you feel some type of way, like frustrated, unheard, lonely, like, you might feel something that is what you're thinking. Maybe you're worried that no one will be able to connect with you or understand you. Maybe you're frustrated that you're making a choice that's putting you in an environment that you don't really want to be in. Like, let yourself surface what's really there. And one way to do that is to just let it, like, appreciate that their experience is different than yours right now. Appreciate that they don't need to understand where you are, why you're there, what you think or feel. Like, appreciate that, like, it's kind of funny. And all of that will start to, again, like, make space for things to surface or to move. Let's see what I got over here. Thank you for coming out. My best to Australia. Someone after massage school I was talking to recently was calling themselves fat, and I was like, well, if you did this, you might not be. But I know, looking back now, they probably didn't want my advice. They just wanted to complain. Difficult for me not to give when I found helpful way when I hear someone complaining about where they are. Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that, Isaac. I think in those cases, so having had coached, like, I worked with a lot of bodies, and underneath that judgment is like, underneath that assessment of that they're fat is that, like, it wouldn't matter. They don't dislike themselves because they think that they have their body composition is off. It seems like that's why, but it's not that. And in those instances, like, I tried to speak to what's underlying, which is like, it seems like you're really upset or you feel frustrated. Like, make space for the part of them inside that doesn't feel like they're important or worthy or lovable to come forward and connect with them, instead of that layer of, like, self-rejection that's on, like, that what's expressing as self-rejection. Because it's not, it really, like, it's almost like the ways that we judge ourselves are vehicles that our conditioning, our cultural conditioning has handed us, where you feel not worthy, and then from there are all these cars lined up out front, and you can get in the car that says, I don't have, enough money or my own business, or you could get in the car that says, my waist isn't this size, or the car that's like, my relationship doesn't look like a beach advertisement. And so you feel self-rejection, you feel not worthy, and then you get in one of these cars. It's the same thing with drug abuse. Like, when my sister was using drugs, it wasn't that the drugs were the problem, and like, at that point in my life, I kind of knew that they weren't, but everyone was trying to, not everyone, but many were trying to treat drugs as the problem. But drugs were just a car outside of the feelings that she was having that she could get into that kept her, like, that matched how she felt. So when somebody is talking about the car that they're in, about why they're not good enough, see if you can speak to what's behind it. So it's like, I see you, you're okay. Like, tell me something that you're proud about doing. What is it that you're afraid of? Like, speak to the person behind all of those things. Thanks for adding that. Oh, Sean, I didn't know you were still in there. Thanks. Okay, last part. At the end, I do share that you can visit my art store at haveabook.com/art. This one is still in process. These are all pictures I took in New Orleans. This is the back of the St. Louis Cathedral with the Jesus statue backlit. This is what a print looks like, and I am offering these things to help fund. I really want to just get out here and share this stuff, so that is a way for me to pay my bills. And I am also, this is not a way to pay my bills because I'm printing these at cost, but I think they're really fun and helpful. And so this is a divination oracle deck that I designed, and you can buy on my website as well. And they come with a digital little book that's super cute, and they are a way for you to read, like, the energy that's present. So divination is like, what's here? And you pull a card, and then you read the thing, and you can then apply that interpretation to where you are in a way that might help you see it more openly. when we're dealing with life, it's like, oh, same problem. What's the phrase? Same shit, different day. If you're in a same shit, different day pattern, like, it can be real helpful to look at stuff above and below what is, because you wouldn't have to be accepted. There must be a misbelief. Like, there's more to the story than that. Sure, thanks for adding it, Isaac. I appreciate it. All right, everybody, have a beautiful day. I'll be out tomorrow.